Right. You hear me? Okay. So I'm glad because this is the first conference that I don't have to buy anyone to this design system. So makes my life much easier. So just a little bit of myself, who I am. My name is Raul. I'm actually lead design system engineer at Bumble. I've been work as an engineer for as long as I can remember. If you ever use iOS 4, I was there developing apps. If you ever heard the word Flash, I was also there producing Flash. Actually, apps built in Flash. Not a lot of people knows that. Fun fact about me is that I have 60 pairs of sneakers and it's growing, which means that a year has 52 weeks. I can use one sneaker a week without repeating, and I still have room to decide what I want to do. And one thing with sneakers is once you start, you're so embarrassed that you decide that stop is actually more embarrassing. So you just keep going. Important about the stock is bear in mind that a lot of things is always based on my experience. I don't have a lot of data to back this. I do my research, but if you see something that doesn't sound right, just talk to me afterwards or raise your hand. It's always going to be cool. Um, I want to start in a very different way. Like I changed this presentation like a couple times, and that's this quote from someone that I don't want to quote because I'm not a huge fan. But when you create a company, you actually there's only three roles that are actually important for you to move this company ahead, which is president, secretary, and treasurer. The rest of the roles are just invented by us to fulfill a need of having a representation or put some meaning in what we do, right? So we can be specialized in something. We're gonna answer this question at the end of the whole talk, but just keep that in mind because it's quite important. But when you talk about like what's actually the role of the the scientist and engineer, like how many engineers we have here again? Raise your hands, like fairly little one, yeah. We are represented, but not that much. But what actually we do, where do we see what is actually our main job? Like past the years, things just keep increasing. Our scope is bigger. Like we start with something that is quite small. Like we had to do one small task. And if you compare with what we do today, it's quite massive, right? We got so much responsibility. We got to learn so much, but it still, depending on what you do, you're not fully respected on your industry. If you have like massive teams like we have at Bumble, sometimes you can be mislooked at like, yeah, actually you don't know about engineering. That can happen in a lot of companies because there's the fact that you carry the design word on your title. It gives you the impression that you are a design guy, which some reality in some way. But when you look back at the industry, like actually, what's the early days of it being a design, right? So I tried to explain my family what I do for a living, and that's what I came up with, which is, as Mary was said, like it's buttons the most used component. So that's how I explain my family. What do you do? Like I do buttons. It's easy to explain to my cat as well. He can understand quite well. But at the end, what we do for the majority of the people is just like, it's just a button, right? You get your Figma file, then you have your whole representation of like, variants. And what you ask to do most of the times is this, just put a button screen, create a button, how the code looks like. So that's the button factor, that's us for the eyes of the product, sometimes for the eyes for the actual engineers. That's what they think that we do. But if you look at yourself as an engineer, look at the industry, like we started as this UI engineer. So first we are just designers. We knew what we were doing. Then we evolved to become UI engineers. The first time that I heard the term UI engineer was actually on Netflix. So I was looking for some jobs and I saw that Netflix actually had UI engineers, not design system engineers. So Netflix, they do have the concept that a lot of engineers, they do not just the platform, the features, but they do produce the UI engineer. But as we develop the design system, the UI engineer is just like 10% of our work. Like, it doesn't represent much. We are in the moment that even an AI can actually perform a UI work. Then we have design engineer, which is a little bit more advanced word that bridges design and brings engineering together. At the end, it's the same work, but you have a better access to the files, you have a better understanding how things goes. And this is a new one for me, technologists. How many of you heard this term before, technologists? Quite a few. You work specialized in what exactly, right? A design, engineering code, bridging the gap, bringing everything together. So actually what we do, that's what the industry thinks that we do. We focus on components, now tokens, but the main job that we do is pixel perfect. Every time that we actually go to do something like, oh, is this pixel perfect? How do we achieve pixel perfect? This is a buzzword. And we just keep pushing for that. Or fast handover. That's at the surface level consistency, right? It's just how do you actually make things fast? What's your main job? I'm do pixel perfect. I make just hand over fast. So I probably write the specs, I write the components, and the consumers goes down. But we know that what we do is deeper than that, and this is where the iceberg comes in. The button at the tip of the iceberg, which is pretty much what everyone keeps thinking, like it's just a button that we do. But when we look actually at responsibilities, how the system grew over time is much more than that. Even the components is just the surface with what we do. Now, we, over the years, we had to understand infrastructure, what that means. Like, a design system nowadays doesn't work without infrastructure. You need your tokens, you need your pipeline automations, you need Figma plugins nowadays. It's not just copy and paste. No, we are in that level that if you want to automate, make things faster, ready for the future, that's a lot of infrastructure. Just like any application nowadays, infrastructure also leads to security. If you expose your components or in structure to something malicious, we are opening a backdoor. And we have governance. That's something that a lot of people didn't know at first. We also need to understand that when we build things, we need to not just do the re-representation, the pixel perfect of this work. Like we are responsible how engineers make things together. So if you have a button and you open the door for your button on your APIs when you design them to have a checkbox inside, is that right? The design might be not represent that one, but if you open the back door, someone will do it, and they do. I have a lot of experience, like people are just misusing components and create ad hoc components. And it comes to the point that ad hocs cost companies a lot of money over time because they misrepresent your identity. They open the door for customizations, and you're responsible for that because you designed it bad, your APIs. And on top of that, we also have support. We just don't just throw things out. We are responsible for customer support, where a customer is not just the designers, it's also the engineers. We are responsible for the whole workflow, support them, make sure they have the tools. So actually, what is being a design system engineer? Well, if we break down, design system engineering actually is composed by two main governance, right? One is design, the other one is system engineer. And when you break down two governance, actually you know exactly what that means, right? So we have the design path where you understand the design language, you know what's typography, you know color, tokens, you have your motions, all those kind of things. You are the design that understand that part. You understand contribution model, you understand versioning, a strategy, how to communicate with the business, your product. You also understand consistency and how components can be used across platforms. Even though you might be, some iOS, some Android engineers, you have a better understanding from cross-platform solutions. You understand design patterns, you understand navigation patterns, things that the majority of the engineers don't actually look at. And then you come across bridging the communication with all the designers. So you know exactly the technical skill that is required to go and bring the information to the communication, make sure that they understand, you understand the struggle. So you are the bridge that communicates. It's not just about software. You are someone that understands that part well to do everything that's needed. And we have the system engineer, which is the complex part, is why we are here. You know, being a system engineers, and I think that's important. It's not just engineer. We are talking about designing a whole system in this lab. So you build infrastructure. So all the tooling that actually is needed for your design system to run. Like believe or not, but you also need to know, the continuous delivery process. You need to understand how from Figma I'm gonna publish, and from the other side my tokens are gonna be there. You need to understand the whole process, which language I'm gonna choose. What are the tools that are being used there? There's Supernova, there's Zero High, that is Storybooks. You are responsible for choosing the best tools and trying to understand how they work and connect together. You are the one that set up the whole process to work. You are responsible also to ensure scalability, reliability, and adoption across teams. Unlike the majority of the teams, which is a feature-based, they are judged by the revenue that it can bring in the features, and it works, right? When you have your feature being delivered, you know the metrics, you know if it's being used or not, you know exactly how that works. But being a system engineer means that your metric is adoption. Like you are responsible for the success of the product as long as people adopt your product. Whatever you do, if you don't do properly, you have much more complex scenario. If you don't have adoption, the system fails, and you actually introduce tech debt. Tech debt costs companies a lot, and it's a lot to have in your shoulders. And you have to shape the platform for the future. And what would be the presentation nowadays without talking to about AI, right? So you got to a position that you need to understand how AI works so you can prepare the foundation for AI, which here is AI readiness. It needs to be ready. It's like AI is not just a companion for the engineers. AI is consuming you as a product, and you need to understand what language to use to communicate with AI. It's not just about design aware, it's engineering a system that's interconnected with a lot of ends, and you need to understand those ends. It's AI, it's designer, it's an engineer, it's a product, it's all connected. We evolved from a simple button factory to become a wide SaaS in-house. So we provide a product for the company to scale the product. We be that. And this is where we are now, the scaling and the platform thing, which is interesting. So when you have all these responsibilities, you as the design system engineer, what actually do you sit? Like, who is your boss at the end? Like, who you have to report to? And that's quite interesting. Like, while the majority of engineers report for an engineering vertical, you are not there. You're actually between two verticals, which is much more complex. You need to understand engineering, which is going to be the one driving your path across the company. So from design, you become lead, you become staff, you become principal, distinguished. And if you choose to be, you can be even a CTO or even more. If you go to the other path, you can still be a design system manager and still know about the engineering. But you also have the vertical, which is design. So your product team is always going to be towards you as well. So you need to understand the product needs, the design needs to evolve your product. It's not just how I can do well as an engineer. If you do that, you just say one engineer. It's how I can do well across my verticals so I know what my product wants to and I know what my engineer wants to. Remember, you are the provider for the system. It works for the system and you drive the system forward. We or platform contributors more than anything else. If you work in a company that has actually a platform team, you know what that means is you build foundation. Great systems are building stable foundations. AI only exists nowadays because we built such a strong foundation so when it could learn and it could scale. You build foundation for scalability, and that's what driving forwards. And as I say, design needs performance and needs secure like any infra is a huge infrastructure work. Like, just to keep something up and running, it takes time, it takes research. It's not just about having something, in the code base that works. You have to keep moving forward. Like you don't just do something and forget about it. No, you have to keep involved your product. You have to keep involved technology. You need to be always on top of it because at the end, what drives our success is adoption, not just aesthetics. It's not just if something looks good, it passed. No, 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 no. We are driven by the adoption. That's how we are measured by. If it doesn't work, we fail, which is our main role. So what we do, we just enable hundreds of engineers and designs to move faster. That's what actually we do when we're trying to answer the question. It's not buttons, it's not just UI. Our main job is to make sure that everyone can move faster, everyone has exactly the tools that they need so we can scale. It's not just about scaling the visual system, it is scaling for hundreds of users, which are the engineers, and the final users as well, if you count it. And AI is there. Not going to talk about it, it's going to take jobs. I think it's the top that for me is already dead. It keeps evolved, but we are requested now to use AI every day. And what that means, like we can use it as a co-pilot, works, amazing, but AI without context is just a junior engineer that doesn't know actually what they are doing in the playground. So when you're asked about AI, what's the future, we need to adapt our mental model and how we do things. So we get to this, our button factor becomes a little bit more complex because instead of just providing information for engineers, we now need to play with a completely different playground. How we translate everything that we do, constraints, governance, components, to actually AI agents. We are the one that now needs to do all those kind of things. So part of your job right now is also to write better prompts, agents, understanding MCPs, understand everything that's being offered, so you can better prepare your system for the AI. But AI is not just a co-pilot; it becomes a consumer of your system, which is now is kind of like have junior engineers that actually you cannot speak with them unless you use caps lock. It works very well. And this is what we see. AI can generate UI. Yes, AI will generate UI, but as long as we provide a good foundation for the design system, AI will generate the perfect UI that we are expecting to, which it does not harm our brand, follow our guidelines. AI that can actually scale without us being on top of it. Because we are input all those kind of things, we define the structure, we define the metadata that's going to be, the semantic tokens, like we are preparing all this context for actually AI, and how people is going to prompt is our responsibility as well. Now, just good thing about Figma that you can use MCP, copy and paste in your prompt, and going to give you a lot of rich information. It's incredible, but you are responsible for how that information is going to be refined. It's copy and paste something, not going to give you the magic output. You need to find your system and provide the right rules so the agents can also work. As you have engineers, you also have AI as a consumer, and that's how that's pretty much being ready for the future. And that's what resume. Like if you want to build for AI, you want AI to actually consume your system well, you need to be prepared for that. And it's part of actually your role and what you do. So you see that from UI engineers, we become a much more complex system that has too many consumers there. And AI becomes one of those. And why this actually matters at the end, you know, why actually matters being called a design system engineer, not just, engineer, L4, L5, UI engineer. Why actually do we care to be called properly? And it's because of this perception, shapes adoption. Like we just don't do UI anymore. We want to be understood and actually get paid for actually what we do, which is providing a system for everything that's connected. We are closer from not just design, we're close for engineering in infrastructure way. So that's what we care. That's why we want to be called like properly. That's what part of our roles. And defining those constraints helps us to understand. No, I don't remember what I put a guidance expectation, but it's about adoption at the end. We have different expectations from the majority of the teams. It's not about just success of the product. We are measured by the success of how people implement the product. And having these guidelines well defined, it helps us to define the future. And the future is just like we say, now it's AI. What's next, right? Are we going to be talking, using Amazon Whisper, actually that, you can communicate with AI. So we need to prepare the system for the future. So at the end, design system engineer, the role itself, it's about a lot of responsibilities. It's about how you measure, how you create the system, how you define, how you scale, how you produce things properly in-house. So if you look at back at our iceberg, no, it's not just surface. We are deeper than that. And it's complex to understand. It's really hard to find professionals that actually wants to take the responsibility and moving on. So to wrap up, because it's a very short presentation. So things that we actually do, like the three topics. We are infrastructure. So we do plugins. So we need to understand how they work. We do pipelines. We need to understand CI. We need to understand, how things connect together, how tokens are produced, how we test, how we detect regressions, how we support all that infrastructure. So we are infra. We are consistency, how our system connects together with the other parts of the project. We are responsible for designing perfect APIs that people don't break it. People we use as intended. AI we use as intended. Don't find backdoors, don't find exceptions. Exceptions create tech debt. Tech debt creates problems in the future because it costs us a lot. We are support because every single consumer needs our attention constantly. So what we keep doing is just repeating the wheel. We do things, we ask the users, we listen to feedback, we scale the system, we go back and forward. Like we are directly, or consumers, or devs, or designers, and we are directly in touch with them. And the end one is AI. We are responsible to make sure that the system is ready for AI, which is a complex task because AI changes every day. New tools come every single day. And we need to every single day wake up and first thing that we do is like, let me see how AI is going to change my day today. Not for the good, not for the bad, just make sure that your system scales for it. It's not just AI anymore. It's infra, adoption, AI readiness, not just UI, I'm sorry. It's about everything that's connected. Oops. Yeah, so it's not just about code. It's about create a system that everyone can understand. Every single system can talk to it and make sure that actually is scalable. And I think that's actually being a design system engineer, that's the role. Thank you.